All right, thanks for tuning in to more football coverage as we are just 3 weeks away from the start of the 2021 NFL Draft here on Inside Our Leads NFL Depth Charts as we talk quarterbacks. And what better individual to talk about quarterbacks, not just the quarterbacks that are going to be drafted in this year's draft, but some of the young quarterbacks in the NFL, than somebody who played in the NFL with 11 different organizations, played professionally for 11 years, Canada, Europe, United States, NFL, you name it, JT O'Sullivan, who runs the quarterback school on YouTube. JT, thanks for taking your time out to talk to us today.
Yeah, you're making me feel really old right there, but yeah, I
That's
appreciate
okay.
it. I'm fired up.
I'm older
Off
than
the
you,
ball.
so that's all right. All right, JT. So, first of all, tell me about the school. Let's talk about that. And why did you want to put it together? Was it just because, hey, I've got the knowledge? Look at many offenses I've run. Look at many countries I've been in, different organizations. If anybody can run something called a quarterback school, it's me.
No, I honestly took quite a couple years away from football when I was done playing. Got a chance to go back to school, and so I'd finished that, and all of a sudden had some time on my hands and was kind of experimenting with the idea of getting back into football at some level, and kind of had eliminated certain options that I probably thought about earlier as far as coaching at the highest level and those types of things. And so just trying to figure out if I wanted to do anything football related, kind of started noticing that I was consuming all of my content on YouTube and figured that there would be a space for that on that medium. And so from there, it's kind of evolved into a little bit of really it just represents what I bring to the game as far as I'm a fan, I'm a coach, a former player. So I try to touch all those buckets. And this time of year, it's heavy draft, but really it's whatever I think is interesting, whatever I'm curious about football wise. It usually centers on the quarterback position, obviously, but I just kind of have fun diving down deep holes, whatever I think is interesting in ball.
All right. So, by the way, before we get through to a bunch of questions I'm going to have, I just want to remind everybody now, this is last year's 2020 draft guide from our lads. The new guide will be out in the next few days. So we can't wait for that. You can go to ourlads.com to place your order of our lads guide to the 2021 NFL draft. Let's start there, JT. And I'm not going to waste your time with Trevor Lawrence because I think we know enough about Trevor Lawrence at this point. But I want to ask you, and with Kyle Wilson looking like a lock going to Zach Wilson, look like a lock going to the Jets, which of the remaining quarterbacks do you think is the best fit at San Francisco?
Well, I mean, let me push back a little bit on the Trevor Lawrence thing. I think he has kind of been written off as the guaranteed number one. I think it's worth unpacking at least put it in our mind to revisit in 5 years, what that exactly looks like right now, because I'm not quite sure it's as clean as everybody thinks it is. Not that everybody thinks it's clean. I think that there is a top tier within this draft class.
Okay.
And it certainly seems like Jacksonville has identified Trevor Lawrence and then Zach Wilson's going to the Jets. But from there, I think San Francisco, and the thing about Trevor Lawrence, there's a few things, but the thing that I come back to, and this again connects to what I'm going to say for the third pick, is I just think there's been occasions where he's been outplayed. And I think he's been very good for very long. And I think people kind of put it on a shelf that, he's been this top prospect for a long time. But when you dive into some of the head-to-head big game matchups, I think he's been outplayed. And that's just the truth of it from this standpoint. And so whether that continues in the league on Sundays, we'll see. I think everybody's obviously excited about him as a prospect. From there, for me, I think Justin Fields is by far the third best quarterback in this draft class. I know that that's not a popular opinion. I know that's not what everybody's saying coming out of San Francisco. For me, what the 49ers did to get that pick, to the moves that they made, I feel like Justin Fields is the best option at the position at that moment. I know that certainly doesn't sound like what the mouthpiece that's coming out of the organization from that standpoint, where they're going with Mac Jones and all those things. For me, I think Justin Fields is the most athletic, the most dynamic, the most opportunities with the highest ceiling, all those types of things that people love to say this time of year. I'm also fascinated by Trey Lance. I think he's a hard one to project what he will do, where he will fit for a number of different reasons. And then the Mac Jones thing, it is what it is. He's certainly had a nice year this year. He certainly does certain things really well and brings it to the table. And if that's the way that the 49ers are going, I think it'll be a fascinating move. It will make the kind of the middle part of that top 10 that much more interesting, because I think Justin Fields is that good.
You don't think that any one of those three quarterbacks fits the San Francisco offense any better than the others?
I think anybody fits the San Francisco offense well. I mean, I think Kyle Shanahan has proven that he can win with a number of different guys, a number of different types of guys. That's the other part about Fields. I think of all the guys he's ever had, I don't think he's ever had somebody that dynamic of an athlete. That's someone who could bring that to the table. I think that's the way that, the majority of people would say that the landscape of the league is evolving at that position. All those types of things that we've heard over the last half decade. They get the opportunity to do that with Justin Fields now. Is it something that they're going to do? Only they know at this point, but it's we'll see. I don't think that there's like, oh man, Trey Lance, he wouldn't be able to function in Kyle Shanahan's offense. I think you and I could go in there and function in Kyle Shanahan's offense. He's going to scheme some people open for you.
You more than me. Okay. Before we move on though, then you were talking about Lawrence. Because when his name came up over the past year or so, it was, well, here is another of your very few elite can't miss guys. He was being put into the Locke, Manning kind of category, maybe even Joe Burrow. So that right off the bat, did you yourself believe, or even still do, believe more in Joe Burrow? Like if they were in the same draft class, do you think Joe Burrow would have been chosen, or would you have chosen Joe Burrow over Trevor Lawrence?
That's a good hypothetical. I would say Trevor Lawrence is has a bit of a higher ceiling for me. I think Joe Burrow has played fantastic. Had a really magical of magical years that final year at LSU. I think Trevor Lawrence looks like he's someone who projects to potentially be a better player on Sundays. That being said, he's projected that way for the last 3 years. People have thought that. And I think the development maybe hasn't matched the idea or the expectation from what I've seen on the all 22. Now, you got to also understand, my analysis is very incomplete, right? Like I'm not talking to these guys. I'm not getting them on the whiteboard. I don't really know what they know. I'm only looking at the film. And so the film for me says that he's gotten outplayed. And, I'm sure all those guys are hyper competitive alpha males, and he's gotten outplayed. And so there's an element of, okay, I know everybody, he ticks all these boxes, and I've heard the same thing about Luck, Manning. And, you'd have to go back and do your own kind of take on what Luck evolved into. He certainly was a great draft pick, and when he was healthy, he was very good. And, he didn't play very long.
Yeah.
And, what does that look like as far as the expectations for that type of generational pick at one? And so I just think it's a lot to put on him. I'm not sure. I think that the projection of that type of prospect has been with him for so long that it's almost given him a pass a little bit as far as what people might have dug into, might have looked at the film if it wasn't so kind of clear cut. Okay, Jacksonville's doing this. Urban Meyer's in.
Yeah, that's
true. They're doing this experiment.
Good point. All right, as far as the remaining quarterbacks then, in this specific draft class, is there one outside the top 5 that is just definitely this is the guy that should be 6?
Well, I mean, who's your 5? We probably disagree on who the top 5 are.
Interesting.
Who are you putting?
Okay, well, that would be Lawrence, Fields, Wilson, Jones, and Lance.
Yeah, I probably, if I was drafting just for me without not having any other variables in an organization, I probably wouldn't have Jones in the top 5. That's just me. If I know this, and I mean, we're all sensitive to hearing what's going around. And if I know myself, if I was just in a room and I was just looking at the film for 3 months, he wouldn't be in the top 5 at all. That's just my opinion. And so I personally, I really like Kellen Mond. I think I think he is not quite as smooth to watch.
Yeah.
He's rigid upper body. He certainly misses some throws occasionally, but he played at a really good program, top 5, all the things that you want to see. He had a great year, all those types of things. I think he's got an opportunity depending on where he goes. And again, it's one of those things where in the NFL draft, you get penalized for being good, and you almost luck into, if you're a late round first pick, yeah, you're bummed out that you're not going to get the upfront money that you think you deserve. and you go to a better organization, and you go to a better situation potentially
That's
long
true.
term. And so, depending on where he ends up, if the Steelers invest in a quarterback early, if an organization with a track record for being successful makes that decision, I'll be fascinated to see. I'm personally, I'm intrigued to know where Trey Lance and Kellen Mond end up. I think they're both really exciting prospects. From there, I also spent a little bit more time with Davis Mills than I have anybody else in that kind of what I would say second, third tier.
Okay.
I think he had some things in college that translate well to Sundays. I don't think he's quite to what I would consider the Kellen Mond type of prospect as far as the athleticism, the dynamic playmaking ability, that type of thing. And then you get into guys like, Trask. But if you're just answering your question, it's Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond is a clear cut kind of, your number 6, my number 5.
Fair enough. And that means that there is a chance that Mond could very well get drafted in the first round. He could, like you were saying, he could be one of those guys that gets drafted somewhere between 15 and 32.
Yeah, and I mean that's another thing that I just don't do,
okay.
right? Like there are so many people that do really good like mock drafts and things like that. Like I'm just like, if I was being the head coach, if I was a coordinator, if I was the quarterback coach, I would really like to have the opportunity to coach up Kellen Mond to play on Sundays. I think he's got the opportunity to be pretty special.
All right, now let's see. We have about less than 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to run through as many as I can on these. Let's start with Sam Darnold. Can Sam Darnold, I guess, replicate what happened to Ryan Tannehill? This is not a knock on Adam Gase. I am a Jet fan. I am not one of the Jet fans that just knocked Adam Gase to knock Adam Gase. My opinion is, and again, this is not an expert. My opinion was that I think Tannehill or Darnold, maybe they just, for whatever reason, Adam Gase's offense from the outsider seems to be a little bit difficult to pick up, maybe. And maybe Tannehill went to an offense, and maybe Darnold will go to an offense that's a little easier to pick up. Maybe, again, I'm not the expert, but it helped Ryan Tannehill to have Derrick Henry in the backfield. I don't think there's any question about that.
There you go.
That's definitely high on the list. But yeah, do you think Sam Darnold can duplicate what happened to Ryan Tannehill?
Yeah, absolutely. I also obviously need to qualify that Adam and I are friends. He coached me multiple stops. I'm a big fan of Adam Gase. I know it hasn't worked out in 2 different stops, and that's probably beyond the scope of this conversation to figure out and unpack why. I don't think you're totally off base by saying that maybe they were asking him to do things that were either too much or outside the scope of what he was best at. And I'm talking about Sam Darnold. And then again, so much of it is context and luck and who's around you and, all those types of things. And so, I think you go back and put on some film of Tannehill in Miami, there are flashes of him looking like he looks right now. I think that he's been more consistent. They ask him to do different things. It's a lot more play action, I don't love the manage the game type vibe, but it is manage the game. But when he's had opportunities to make plays, he's made plays. And so I think as a young quarterback, Sam Darnold, starting fresh, new organization, Joe Brady, he's got the reputation for being quarterback friendly, whether that's to you is simplifying what they're asking him to do. Maybe it's just kind of evolving with football as it evolves into a little bit more of a RPO, horizontal, vertical stretch game that, Adam, I haven't talked to Adam about this, but, maybe is more, 10 years ago, as far as scheme wise, exactly what they're asking, demanding the quarterback to do on a consistent basis. So I personally am rooting for Sam Darnold. I think he is a very good prospect. I know it's a tough league when things don't go your way, especially I can only imagine in that city. And I think he's got a chance to come out of this with thick skin, a better player in a better situation with a potentially more stable organization, at least, coaching wise. They invested in the new coaching staff. They'll be there for a little while, and he's going to have a shot to get in there, compete in a division that, besides for Tom Brady, looks like it's potentially a little bit more open than it has been in the past few years.
All right. Now, let's talk about a couple of quarterbacks that may get traded. I don't think Jordan Love is going to get traded, but if Aaron Rodgers happens to stay in Green Bay longer than people believed that was going to be the case, such a great year this past year, they drafted Love. It just didn't look like it was a good situation. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors in Green Bay with Love. But if a team came along and said, hey, we need a quarterback, and we can't get one in this draft. Would the Packers be interested in trading Love? Is there a team out there that needs a quarterback that you think he might be a good fit for?
Jeez, I've never thought about that for a hot second. I thought you were going to say the opposite.
Aaron Rodgers. Well, I think Aaron Rodgers is a good fit anywhere.
Yeah, they were going to trade Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he is a good fit anywhere.
Yeah.
That would be the more interesting storyline. The Love thing, yeah. I mean, I think so. I think that the other thing, I'm not sure about that. That's not true. I'm giving you a half answer here because I think that this quarterback draft class is deep. And I think that there are even guys in that middle round area, whether it's Kyle Trask, whether it's Davis Mills, we already talked about. There are just potential there that I think, I'm obviously never in the Packers draft room, but I don't think everybody had Jordan Love where the Packers ended up taking him. And so, what that grade looks like for them, might not be the same as far as the value they can get back. I think that if a team wants to get a quarterback this draft, they've got going to have the opportunity to get a quarterback. Now, it might not be, Trevor Lawrence, but it does have the opportunity to be somebody pretty good. And so, Kellen Mond, Jordan Love, I personally would probably take Kellen Mond. There might be a little bit of recency bias there for me just because I've seen him more recently, but that's the kind of where I would say he fits in this draft class. I'm sure that there are teams potentially inquiring, but I can't imagine that they would make that move unless it's just a disaster behind the scenes.
Well, it looks like when we're looking at just the top 10 and we see, okay, Atlanta could and maybe will give Matt Ryan another year. Well, because they're going to have to anyway. He's not going anywhere based on his contract. And they feel, all right, let's try to build around Matt one more year. That's possible. Maybe they don't go quarterback. Carolina, to trade with Darnold. Maybe that's their quarterback now. So if that's the case, and let's say Detroit, Goff, we're going to give him a year or two. We're not going quarterback. So now we get down to Denver and Drew Locke. What did you think about Drew Locke? Before he came out, and what do you still think about Drew Locke and his possibilities of being a starter in the league?
I probably was never as high as people were on Drew Locke, especially after he had a little success. I think at the end of his rookie year, I think Denver was excited about what that looked like moving forward. For whatever reason, the Sunday game, the consistency, the footwork, the precision that maybe he got away with at the collegiate level has been difficult to pick up. And I know he's gone through a lot of transitions, new offense coordinator last year, those types of things. That's just the norm in the league.
Yeah.
There is no stability really when it comes to that. You're really fortunate if you fall into that and get lucky with that. But for me, I would need to see significant growth from his footwork, his consistency, his decision-making, all of those things all the way around. I feel like Denver has got a pretty good opportunity to get a good quarterback that they feel good about at that pick. I'll be honest. I mean, to me, again, I'm no mock draft expert, but there's a chance that there's a serious run on these quarterbacks in the first top 10. And if you want to get your guy, who's in that kind of bottom half of the first tier of guys, you're going to have to get up there and jump in front of them. And so, it'll be fascinating to see, just as kind of a compare contrast, I would be fascinated to see what exactly happens. Obviously if Justin Fields there at that point, I feel like that's a no brainer, but if Trey Lance is still on the board, if Mac Jones is still on the board, there's just as a contrast to what Drew Locke is. I think Drew Locke is a little bit more, I think Kellen Mond is a more polished quarterback than Drew Locke is. I think Drew Locke obviously has a cannon of an arm. I don't think he's quite as polished the lower half, which makes his consistency, difficult. Okay.
Interesting. I'm going to throw a few other quarterbacks at you with our remaining time. Jeff Risdon and I have talked quite a bit. He covers the Detroit Lions, has a Detroit Lions podcast on the YouTube channel. And we were going over, I was asking him about Tim Boyle because Jeff doesn't, he's like, I'm really at a loss of why the Lions seem to really like Tim Boyle. And because all we were looking at is Tim Boyle's college tape at UConn, and it just didn't look very good. And I know he transferred out. Okay, a couple of years went by. I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to look at Tim Boyle's tape very much, but do you know anything about Tim Boyle and whether or not he's somebody that we should actually keep an eye on?
I have no idea who Tim Boyle is. Sorry. I mean, it's not my thing to know the back end of rosters. I'm out of that world when it comes to
Apparently,
trying to
he's
figure out
right
where
now the
spots are
number 2
available.
quarterback for the Detroit Lions. So he's not even that. That's why
Well,
you're in the same boat we are.
that's why they have a draft. That's why they have a
that's
draft.
true.
I've been that guy before. That feels like he's sitting pretty, and then all of a sudden you go from 2 to 4 in one day. So it's I'm sure that they'll make a move to add depth at that position, even if they do feel like Goff is the answer this year and beyond.
Okay.
Just you don't get when you're in the building, you never think that you're going to get an opportunity to draft that high again, even though they probably will.
All right, Stidham. Do you think Stidham has a chance to be a starter in the league?
Sure. I mean, who the hell am I to tell them that they don't have a chance to be a starter in the league? I think that, last year seemed like it was a pretty good opportunity for that to happen, especially with that organization that has the track record to play the best guy. And, even though it was a long time ago, for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. I think we all kind of go on there and look and see how Cam Newton performed throwing the ball consistently. And I think that, I'm sure that their coaches are saying the same thing, that if there was someone else on the roster that would give us a better chance to win, he would play. And obviously they didn't think that. And so if they don't think that, they obviously have more information than I do about, why he isn't in there consistently. And so, there's an element of, you go back and look at his tape and what he was able to do at Auburn, and there are flashes and things that look like they translate Sundays. And so for whatever reason, again, so much of this is you have to paint the full picture of not getting the full offseason, not getting the opportunity to develop in preseason, not getting those opportunities to compete. All those things sound like excuses until you're impacted by that and your development's impacted by that. So I'm always just conscious of what that looks like. And who knows, there could be a significant, like a Josh Allen bump for him this year when it comes to his productivity on the practice field. Now all of a sudden he's in there playing.
Right. Bottom line, though, is you think he has enough talent that that bump could come. He's got that type of talent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any disqualifier to say that it doesn't happen. He certainly has up until this point. But, I think that whether that's opportunity, whether that's, you're going to guess that he's in the building, he's getting better and better and better and buying into exactly what they're doing. And maybe it clicks for him this offseason and, they're solved.
And we'll find out, too, how much they believe in Stidham, whether or not they take a quarterback. So that could come into play as well.
Yeah. And I mean, they re-signed Cam, too, I think,
one more year, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can see that.
Jacob Easton. Do you like Jacob Easton?
I mean, I like his big arm. I think that everybody likes that part of it. I don't necessarily think that he did anything in college to make me think, that he's going to walk into an organization and be a superstar right away. Again, so much of this is, luck, your opportunity to play. When does it happen? Are you surrounded by people that can help you? So many things. So yeah, does he have a big enough arm to play on Sundays? Sure. I personally, I've talked about this a handful of different channels, but I know back in the day, transferring meant that you kind of, you couldn't cut it at a place. And so when guys transfer nowadays, it's a lot more just part of the culture of football. It doesn't bother me that, he couldn't win a job in college and went to go look for a different job. That's damn near every other guy. That's Joe Burrow. That's Justin Fields. All those types of things. That stigma has evolved. So again, I think he's got the tools to be able to do that consistently. Now, does he do it consistently? Does he get an opportunity to do it consistently? There are only 32 jobs. Yeah. And so, I love to, it's one of those things where, for me, selfishly, like I was a guy who got a chance to go to Europe and develop, got a chance to go other places and develop where these opportunities don't exist anymore.
Yeah. That's the part that they haven't figured out yet, unfortunately. I hope they do one day. We all do. Lastly, before I let you go, is there a quarterback in the NFL right now, a backup, some young kid, and again, a Tim Boyle type, or somebody we've heard of but hasn't had an opportunity that you like, that we should keep an eye on?
This is more just me, on an anecdotal personal level. I'm a big fan of Luis Perez, a guy who's bounced around a few different leagues, got a chance to play. I'm hoping that he gets an opportunity somewhere. Again, so much of this, when you're like the fourth guy on the roster in a training camp, I mean, you're throwing pat and go, you're throwing routes on air, you're rarely getting a real rep in a team environment, and so you need to get lucky. You gotta get an opportunity in an organization. Someone needs to believe in you. But he's an example of a guy who I know does it the right way, cares about it, won basically like the Heisman for the Division II. And so just needs an opportunity to continue to develop, grow, buy in. And he's a guy I think could, all of a sudden, boom, the decade in the league.
Well, Kurt Warner did, and I think we learned a lot of lessons just when Kurt Warner accomplished what he accomplished. First it was Warren Moon, but Warner was the biggest story of them all that you just never know. And if you stick, but It was fortunate that Kurt had the Arena League. If the Arena League wasn't around, we'd have no Kurt Warner.
And I mean, so many guys came out of the Arena League and NFL Europe. I think of guys like Brad Johnson, Jake Delhomme. Kurt went over to Europe. All those guys got an opportunity to play, and then all of a sudden that gives you more opportunity. Yes. And so it's just unfortunate, and hopefully they find a way to develop these young players.
JT, what are you going to be doing on the Quarterback School channel on YouTube between now and the draft? Any specific reports that you're working on?
Whatever you want. If you hit me up in the comments, I will find a way to make it happen. That's the beautiful thing about that.
Can you give me?
No, I will tell you that will not happen. That will not happen. Maybe after the draft.
Okay, yeah. If he's still the number 2 after the draft, then we got to find out what's going on with this Tim Boyle guy. There must be something to this guy. All right, JT. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk again.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Have a good one.